Try to catch you.
All right, I'm going to call the town meeting to order. In the name of the state of Maine, you're hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Wayne in said county and state qualified by law to vote in town affairs to meet at the Lad Rec Center, 26 Scott Road in said town on Tuesday, the 21st of January at 6 o'clock in the evening. Then and there to act upon the following article, which is Article 1. To choose a moderator by written ballot to preside at the meeting. We're open for nominations. And then we're gonna hand out the,
I'll nominate Doug Stevens. Stevenson, what did I say, Stevens? Stevenson. That guy over there.
okay, Doug Stevenson has been nominated. We're gonna hand out. We're gonna hand out cards to, for you guys to vote on. We're on the blanks. Vote on the blanks, or yes or no.
I know it is. It's easier to do it that way.
No, I know. I think it's how.
It's gonna be written.
How it's not like 10% of last year.
We'll have to get it
Okay.
printed.
I think a special.
There's no quorum, is that what you're asking?
That's what I was wondering as well.
If 3 people show up, do it again.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
The 10% business is if somebody wants to put something on by petition.
That's
Like,
right.
Yeah.
for that referendum,
Right.
for the
Right.
referendum ordinance,
For
or if they
the-
want to put an article by
That's
petition.
I knew there was. something.
I was worried about that because if, if we don't get 10% people showing up, what?
There's whoever.
Oh, it's a bigger percentage. than-
Moderator, you're supposed to write the name of the person. Somebody was. That's what we need. Bring it to the That's right. Yes or no?
Most people say what it is. They said that it's so. It's at the time, the fact that doing this, or it's something. It's a full distribution. What is that?
I got more interest from my sister, about what's going on in town.
What it is, I know.
For a year and a half. Well, I think that's our interest.
Me and my friends.
I get a non-resident, can I be the clerk of the
But if I get a non-resident to help me, can I be a clerk of the vote or should I take a resident? To count the ballot.
Oh, right, because Kathy's not here. Oh, she's the ballot.
So it's Bryce, Bryce is serving the life.
Oh, yeah, so Bryce can count, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're.
Should we be voting for the position? Should we be in this vote as well?
Yeah, we didn't get papers.
Yeah, we didn't.
We trying to tell you guys something?
I think so.
Just pass them down, please.
Like Tom.
There you go. It's an easy.
Oh.
I'm just gonna separate them by yes or no.
Nope, excuse me.
It's okay.
We voting on moderator, is that what it gave us before? Yep. We passed one. Action on him.
Since you've accepted us as town citizens.
Yes. Don't accept me as the town clerk.
They're already
I
here.
am.
Yeah. They can't see you, can't be bad.
What's going on?
Did you capture his motion?
Shannon, I don't know.
And you keep them separate?
Yeah.
Executive session of this cemetery.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Did they write on?
I feel about it, they're more soft. Separate treasurer, but they kind of said, hey, John, if you were, somebody should have. Yes. No. You know. I think that would be combined.
How many people are in attendance, do you know?
So there's 41 votes in the affirmative for Doug Stevenson to moderate this meeting. Take it away. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a seat. Thank you.
Okay, so this meeting, we don't have a microphone, so I'll talk loud. If you can't hear me, just raise your hand. You can't hear me? You can or can't? He raised his hand, you okay? Okay, so anyway, welcome to the town meeting. This is a little unusual to have one this time of year. But it's probably close to the time that they used to have it in the old days when the farmers came in, they had no place to go in the winter time and they would have their meeting. By the way, 41 votes, you didn't count any for me, I put in that other guy, right? Thank you very much. So, Trent, you have an announcement?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone for attending tonight. I would like to introduce and welcome our new interim town manager, Shannon McDonald. So. Thank you.
So, Shannon's not a resident of Wayne, right?
Correct.
So we need to have a vote to allow her to speak if called upon during this meeting. I'd rather do it now than if the opportunity comes up. So if you move to do that, okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Thank you. So you can now, I didn't tell you that this afternoon. We went over some things this afternoon, but I want us to be on our almost best behavior because this is your first ever real town meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if we get into some parliamentary issues, we can show her how it really works. Okay? So fortunately, this is a one issue meeting. So we won't get to act, too many places to act out tonight, but we can try. So we're gonna follow the regular rules. Main moderator's manual guides us. I have it here if we need to consult with it. Standard rules that we've talked about in the past, one person speaks at a time. I'll read the article, ask for affirmative motion. Be seconded, then we can discuss it and take up discussion, amendments and all that stuff if you wish. Although I don't know where this is headed, so we'll have an interesting time here. Any questions about process? Okay, I will read Article 2. Shall the town vote to appropriate $167,625 from the undesignated reserve fund for the purpose of the development of the Land Recreation Court project, with $163,702 be reimbursed to the town from the U.S. government as outlined in the Land and Water Conservation Fund project agreement dated 9/12/23, finally a comma, and the remainder to fund interest payments related to the project in an amount not to exceed $3,925. What action do you wish to take?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion on this article?
Brief
explanation?
Brief explanation. Okay, so Steve, who's the proponent to speak on this? You would like to speak? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Yes, so this is actually a proposal to appropriate $167,625 from the undesignated,
You gotta speak loud.
reserve fund for the development of the court project here at the
Mind
last.
standing up so we can
Yep.
project that?
Absolutely. So what we're looking at is a appropriation of $167,625 from the undesignated reserve fund for the purpose of the pickleball, tennis court projects here at the Lad Rec Center. We have a remaining balance of $163,700. That's to be reimbursed from a federal government grant that we received. And so right now, what we're looking at is designating the $167,625. And of that, today, we did just receive partial payment of that reimbursement from the federal government of $71,540. So we are starting to get those portions, but we are looking to allocate a certain amount just to make the payments to what needs to be made.
And it was my understanding there was some problem with the wording of the warrant that prevented payment to the contractor.
Can you speak on this?
I can speak to that if you want.
I'm not resident and have it.
I'll speak to that. So, yeah, why we're here tonight is the town entered an agreement or received a grant through LWCF Land Water Conservation Fund in 2022. And on that warrant in 2022, the town raised $40,000 from property taxes to contribute towards this project. And there were also private funds that were donated for this project, somewhere in the realm of between $140,000 to $150,000. And because it's a reimbursement grant, the town needs to authorize the use of those funds to get reimbursed. So in 2022, on that warrant article, to answer your question directly, there should have been a warrant article that authorized the town to use said funds for reimbursement, and there was not that authorization article. So therefore, the select board does not have the power or the authority to pay these invoices. So we're here tonight, under that history, if that answers your question.
Yes.
I saw another hand, no, sorry.
So the $190,000 that you're talking about has already been given to you.
No.
You said 40,000 and 150,000 came from the public.
Yes, correct.
That's 190,000.
Yeah, do we have is there
So
any?
the
oh,
project is only 167. No.
The project is, if we have an exact figure, that would be
So Shannon
helpful.
has some numbers, let's hear
So
from her.
the original proposal for the project itself was for $331,957. Of that, the town received $145,030 in donations, and the town appropriated another $40,000 towards that, which brought it up to $185,030 has been spent so far on the project. In addition to another $71,950, of which we paid $41,950 of that for one invoice we've received. So we have a balance still of $30,000 on that one invoice. That will bring it to, we have, I think, $116,075 remaining balance, plus we have an interest payment of $1,964. So that brings it to $118,039 as the balance. And we're looking at, I'm trying to figure where we got that. The 163,700 minus that one, so 92. Trying to think of my
We're gonna
math.
cover what was gonna be required this spring too, right?
Yes, in the spring as well. I don't know if that was entirely clear.
Carol, do you want to add something?
But I also was told that part of this land is part of, the watershed part. It's in water, this project.
Carol Carol wanted to elaborate on the first question first, and we'll come back to that. Carol.
So if I can give you the history, this United Water Conservation Grant,
Good talk about
the
it.
same grant, what,
Talk about it.
the same grant that was used for the first elementary school playground. And the way it works is the federal government gives each state a certain amount of money. And then towns submit grants, and the state decides which grants to fund. They fund big things like the lighthouse in Cape Elizabeth and big parks and so forth. We're kind of a little thing that they funded. The way it works is you submit all of your all of the things that go into the grant, estimate what it's gonna cost. And then they decide if they will fund it. And when they fund it, you have to raise half of what you say it's gonna cost. Okay, and so we raised that, the 40,000 was raised during the fundraising campaign. So it wasn't raised really, the townspeople in, at the town meeting in 2022, authorized $40,000 to come into the fundraising fund when we were initially raising funds. So there really weren't the townspeople doing that, along with, I think it was maybe 87 other people who have raised different amounts of money. So once we had raised that money and we could show them that we had raised that money in a dedicated fund with the town, they gave us the grant. Now, what happens is we had to put out RFPs for a contractor. We did that, we got bids, we have the contractor. The project is 2/3 to 3/4 done. And what happens is he submits invoices for his subcontractors. PH Stevenson is one of the major ones. And when the invoice comes in, the town needs to pay the entire invoice, send the state the copy of the check that they've written the check, and they pay the contractor and ask for reimbursement. Half of that money comes back. The half that the town is fronting comes back right into the town coffers. And Amy Black has arranged it so that there's a special code. It doesn't take a long time. It goes right back into the town of Wayne. So essentially, the money that the town is fronting is coming right back. It's not part of the so anyway, that is supposed to happen. When the invoices started coming in, there was a little, it didn't quite happen, that the town paid the entire invoices. And so, in October, all the invoices weren't paid, and that's what we're catching up on. And by the end of December, there was a little clause that said, if you don't pay your bills, there's interest. And that's what that extra payment is. But we know exactly what the invoices are gonna be, how much it's gonna cost, and it's not gonna cost the town anymore, except for the penalty for not paying in the first place on that. It was just a question of the warrant, which when the warrants in the town, and I think it's the last thing I'll say, but the sample warrant that was supposed to go to the town in 2022 had 3 clauses in it. The town voted yes on the first, the other 2 things weren't included. And that's the problem now, is that the town wants the townspeople to say, yes, go ahead and use the undesignated funds for the payment of these things, and then it comes right back. But not until you pay it, it's inspected and so on. So.
Okay, thank you, Carol. So, you had a question about, did you still have your question about water? You still have your question about the water issue?
No.
I didn't hear what the question was. I just knew you said something.
People told me that part of the land that was being refurbished for this project has, when it rains real hard, you're gonna have a lot of water in that area.
No, he's.
So is that a question the town's?
I don't know if that's true or false.
Is that a question you're dealing with?
Can I say one more thing on that? We
You
put in special drainage, and they rerouted all of the drainage so that, and that had to do with expert people who showed us how it was gonna work and what should happen. So we should be clear on that.
Okay, any other questions about this? Mark?
Is there money in the checking account to pay this?
Is money in the checking account for this? You have money, you have access to money to pay this upfront?
Yes.
Yes,
You wanna pack the road work scheduled for the spring?
you get the money back before the spring,
This is from the undesignated reserve fund.
as opposed to the road funds.
So it's my understanding that I'm gonna use $4,000 because it's just easier. That the town is gonna be liable for $4,000 of interest fees. Is this something that the Lad Center and their organization can reimburse the town for? Or is that gonna be a town expense?
Shannon, I'll start with you. You may want to give it to Trent.
Yes.
I see Mike's hand.
Yeah, just, the board hasn't discussed that at this point, so I can't comment on your question right now. I don't have an answer for you
So the
right
way
now.
that it stands right now, then the town will be liable for the $4,000.
The way it's written right now, that is correct. That's correct.
That's my question.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Well, isn't it true that that $4,000 penalty was because the town did not pay its bill on time? And therefore it accrued the money, and therefore I would wonder why the Lad Center would be responsible for paying for something that was out of their control.
The first
Do you know anything about this? You can respond.
Well, the first portion is correct, that the payments were late, and that's where the interest is coming in. As far as the second portion, I think that is to be determined by the select board, as I said, that they haven't made a decision or discussed it as of this time.
And
Isn't it true also that and I was here at the discussion that the select board had with regard to payments, that the contractor agreed that he would stop all penalties and stuff if we paid him now? Was that an understanding that anybody had?
Shannon,
I believe at one of the last meetings that it was discussed that we would draw up a document to give to the contractor to make sure that it does not go or exceed beyond the $1,964 that they're looking at.
Okay, so it's only 1964
Yes.
that we're paying. Got it.
okay, any other questions? Are you ready to show Shannon how we vote around here? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? Thank you, you did good. So today's your first day, right?
It is.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. There being no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Here, chairs go, where did yours go?
We on.
Out in the room. Chairs go.
Bryce.
We have a select board meeting following here, so.
You wanna leave them here? Okay, I'd like to leave the chairs as the select board meeting started.
Board members, ready? Yeah. Here, I'm gonna open up the regular select board meeting. It's Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. The time is 6:35. All members are present, and we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and flags in the corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members, conflicts of interest in the upcoming agenda? No. Okay, so we've got some meeting minutes to look through, and we're also, oh, that made the agenda, great. Yes, meeting minutes, excuse me. I thought we had to add something to that, but we do not. Are there any corrections to the minutes, and anybody would like to move those?
Approve, we approve select board meeting minutes for December 17th, 2024. Second.
Discussion?
Is this time to just ask a question about the status of items on that venue, or should we ask that later? Okay. Then,
All right, all in favor?
Move, we approve the select board meeting minutes for January 7th, 2025. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Move, we approve the emergency select board meeting minutes for January 9th, 2025. Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay, warrants.
Move that we approve accounts payable number 33 in the amount of $141,947.35. Second.
Discussion.
It's the amount we just authorized, right?
That's for,
So just looking at this past month, we have one transaction for Winter Ferry Public Credit Union at about 75,000. That was for the fire truck reserve funds. There was another 27,819.89, and that was for their contractual plowing agreement. And we have another 9,991 for insurance through MMA.
so to answer your question, Lloyd, it's not,
It's doesn't, yeah, I didn't refund it. It's the,
okay,
so I'm clear, yeah.
okay, all right, all in favor?
Move we approve the payroll number 32 in the amount of $8,800.76.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Move we approve payment to Maine Tennis and Track Company in the amount of $118,000.39. Start again, $118,039.05.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Old business, update on hiring process.
Yep, I think I got this.
Okay.
The posting for the town manager position, the permanent town manager position is now open through February 14th. And we have a process that we're going to use, which is as applicants apply, they go onto a tracking sheet. So we keep basic information, phone, contact information, whether they've completed the application. And then there's a screening document that I've created that we'll use to take a first pass through to see from the applicant's materials, whether they meet basic requirements. And I'm suggesting that the board have Marianne and I complete those. So the two of us take a first pass. All the materials are being saved in a binder so that the board can look at all the materials if they choose to, but from a pragmatic process, can you accept that the two of us will do reviews and get our heads together and just collaborate on whether applicants meet our basic requirements, and from that we'll determine who moves forward and actually receives an interview. There'll be a rubric for the interview that lines up how each applicant performs. We'll use the questions that were developed. We'll, as a committee, we'll decide which questions we want to use, or we want to modify those for the interviews. And then the other decision the board needs to make is whether we all want to do interviews or whether we want a subcommittee to do potentially the first round of interviews. So there's two things to think about and decide. One is for Marianne and I to do the first round of screening to determine who gets offered an interview after we close all the applications.
Sounds sensible to me.
I support that.
Does anybody have an opinion about whether we should all be on the committee to interview itself?
Okay, so the first thing, we're all in on that.
Are we all in on the screening
Yes.
process?
Yes. Oh, I am.
And all the applications would be available to everyone, but we'll just take a very practical look at pluses and minuses, yes, nos, basically.
And then we don't have to determine today who's going to be on the interview committee. I think that's something that we can decide at a future meeting, depending on how many we decide we want to actually interview.
Currently, the posting is out there until February 14th. We've gotten, how many so far? 7?
I don't know. if we-
7 or
yeah,
8?
We've got some. coming.
Yes.
Did we use the, what do you call it, Facebook's
We,
and social media approach that somebody suggested as a what supplement to this?
we haven't gone out on Facebook.
No.
We are on the town website. MMA has a series of places, including LinkedIn, that they've posted it. I don't remember the list offhand. We're currently at about $700 with MMA in terms of our bill to get everything out that they had available to them. There's one that I held back on, which was another $450. It turns out that Massachusetts cost a little bit more. So that other group, which is a larger and broad municipal venue, is another $450, which would bring us to $1,150. And at this point, we had agreed to spend $1,000 on the postings. So I haven't turned that one on. It's a very broad-based venue that we could post on if we think we'd like to get more candidates in. So far, we have 4 of them from Indeed. Indeed is a platform that tends to allow candidates to punch a button and say, send my application to, whatever broad folks that are out there. So we've received several from them that have not actually been complete based on our posting. I would be in favor of going for the larger venue, but again, we agreed to $1,000 in costs to date, and we are at 700. This would bring us another $150 over that $1,000. So we would need an agreement on that.
Why don't we see what comes in? And if we've got enough, if we have enough quality applicants, there wouldn't be any need to go broader.
Certainly.
And we may or may not know the Indeed operation work, but we may not get any more complete applications out of those.
I think unless we were to reach out to those people, as far as they're concerned, their resumes have come to us and they're done unless they hear from us. And
The guidance from your contact at MMA was job posting is very clear on what's expected and what they need to send.
Okay.
And if we're interested in any candidates that are not complete, we could reach out and ask for the rest of the information, but if what we see from what they've submitted isn't even close, then we don't need to, because it's very clear. So I'd encourage anybody that's interested in applying that they go to the town website where all the materials are and read the instructions, or they can go to MMA and take a look at what's required and make sure they follow the instructions.
Give it to your judgment then if you want to pursue them or not.
I did want to make a request that we put out a broad town of Wayne email with our regular email list, indicating that the job is being posted and where to find the information. Okay, thank you.
What's that practice on posting on social media? Do we have a practice or a policy?
Yeah, there's a social media policy. I don't know the details off the top of my head. I know limited became. It's a good question. I have to look at the policy.
I don't
Comment.
recall that it would prohibit anything like this. So we could put a blurb out just saying, if you're interested or know anybody who is. I don't know who has access to that, just you guys in the town office?
Yes, and I'll be transferring it over to her.
Mhm.
We can get it posted up.
Great,
At least to say, Town of Wayne is hiring,
right,
please go to our website.
yeah, I
Check it
think
out.
that would be enough if you're interested.
And ask Carol to put something in the messenger. And if you guys could send us, I think what she plans to do is just put in with town news that the town has posted the job, and if you want information, here's a link to the posting.
That should do it.
So if somebody could send her that, that would be good.
What's the deadline, you know, for next month?
The next couple days.
Okay, so that's a priority item.
Yeah.
So I heard Shannon's gonna send that to Carol.
Mhm.
That's the Wayne Messenger
Got it. Carol Stack.
and Facebook. Bryce will work, it's right.
Great, thank you, Beth.
So I don't know that we need to talk anymore. Today, we don't need any other actions as long as you've now approved, Marion and I to do the screening.
Okay.
Well, at this point, we would not make a decision on that. We would not be together to make a decision on that other posting before February 4th. Our closing date is the 14th. So it would probably be posted on the other site on the 5th and be open for 9 days.
And if we don't have sufficient responses, that would be the reason we'd want to do additional posting. And I guess we could always modify that closing date, couldn't we?
Or have a different closing
Yeah.
date on that one, Daniel.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. All set? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Discussion on ordinance review. Henry, you start us off here, please.
Yeah, I have, we can take care of the review comments that Code 1 has asked for chapters 4 and 11 of their proposed code. 4 is the amusements ordinance for special amusements at places that have licenses for on-premises consumption of liquor. And chapter 11 is our current policy on culvert installation and maintenance. I'll do 11 first because that's the order they're put in my packet here. I see. So if you go there to that chapter 11 memo. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at this or not, but and here's what I suggest we do. There is a form with questions to answer. I think we should, otherwise the motions are going to be very hard to record. If we can decide how we want to answer them, then I will go ahead and actually put it on the forms, send it to everybody to look at, and at our next meeting, we can just have a motion to adopt the answers on these forms and send them to Jim.
Did you have a question, Marion?
I just have the older packet that I made notes on.
Okay.
So, and it hasn't
it's the same. No,
changed,
nothing's
right?
changed.
Okay, that's
It's
all I
just-
wanted to know.
We just keep making Bryce copy them every 2 weeks and put them in a new.
I just
bunch of
didn't make the
pages.
notes on the
No,
new
that's-
one.
no,
That was
that's
my
good.
problem. Okay.
Okay, so I'll do 11 first, because that's what's the first one in the packet here. That is a culvert installation policy. It was adopted by the select board back in July of 1998. It's a policy, not an ordinance. It was adopted by the select board. I don't see any evidence of it ever being approved at a town meeting. It addresses the requirements for installation of culverts for proposed new or additional driveways or other planned entrances onto the town roads. Our first question is, if we want it to stay a policy, it doesn't belong in the code. And we'll just say omit it, because the code should codify ordinance there. And policies and regulations would be you can codify those, but it would be in a different book. So, we have to decide whether we want it to be a code or a policy. Code sounds good to me because policies generally regulate your internal activities, like our ethics policy, our procurement policy, our personnel policy. If we want to impose requirements on the outside, on the townspeople, and also if we want to have any penalties and be able to enforce it, then probably an ordinance is more appropriate. So looking at that first, does everybody think that maybe it should be an ordinance?
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Oh, you're gonna have to clarify for me. So we've got the policy, but then we also have there is an ordinance. But,
No, nothing.
No, the town has a policy, which if you go through here a couple pages, you'll see culvert installation, and no, that's what the code. Here, the town of Wayne culvert installation policy, it looks like this. That's what's
Got it.
currently on our website,
I see.
okay? Code 1 took that and pretty much took it verbatim and said, this is going to be chapter 11 of the
I
code.
see. I see.
Okay, and then they ask questions and note that's what we're dealing with right now.
Did they do that because
So-
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
did they take that because they were recommending it be an ordinance?
No, well, my understanding is that Chip sent them the stuff
Okay,
that they should put in the code, and that was part of the stuff.
Henry, if we convert it from a policy into an ordinance, does that have to go to the next town meeting to be?
Yes, and any of these changes that we make, if we make changes, like even the next one is an ordinance, and I'll be recommending changes to it, it would have to go to town meeting. And there's two ways that we could do it. We can take this, let's say we're gonna make this an ordinance. We can take it and send it to the town meeting in June of 25. And if they pass it, then it's an ordinance then. The code isn't going to be ready, I don't believe, until 2026. So what we would do is take this, make an ordinance out of it, but give it to Code 1 and say, make these changes in the code that you're preparing. What that means is if the town rejects it, then we're gonna have to go back to Code 1 and have them make changes to reflect that. And that will probably be an additional cost. But if we don't do it that way, then it will for sure be an additional cost because they'll be past their review in July. And if we wait until after the town meeting to say, okay, we want these changes reflected in there, then it's for sure an additional cost. So I would suggest that we take these, put them all on warrants for the town
What?
meeting and have them be standalone ordinances.
I'm gonna stop for 1 second
Yes,
here,
sir.
because we have the ordinance that is the driveway issuance permit, right? That was passed in 98.
That's a policy, yes, sir.
But why was it, if it's a policy, why would it have been adopted at town meeting?
I don't think it was.
So what is this culvert what is this? What is?
That's what they did. That's code
But why-
ones,
but
that's
why-
code ones, that's code ones,
Then why does it,
Chapter
but why
11.
does it say a history adopted by the town meeting?
well, because they're wrong. So I
So-
mean, I don't know why you'd have to ask them, but if we look at, but if we look
Yeah.
at the, here,
Cause I'd be reluctant
What-
to codify a culvert as an ordinance because perhaps there's changing knowledge and construction recognition. and
well, that we can.
Then you have to go to a town meeting every time you need a
But you see,
culvert.
this thing that looks like this. Grant, it's in your package, it's a few
Yeah.
pages back. That's off the website.
No, I understand. the
Yeah,
point.
page 25. And you'll see who it's signed by
Sure.
by the select board.
Sure,
Now. Yes, if it has to be, if it's an ordinance, to change the ordinance, it has to go to town meeting. But the ordinance should be written so that standards may
Yeah.
be passed by the select board without
Yeah.
having to have a town
yeah,
meeting.
that makes sense.
You can have an ordinance, but still say the standards can be adopted and changed from time to time. And if they're just deal with things like size of culverts, that's okay.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay, so
I don't know why they have that history adopted by the town meeting. though.
because, well, I don't know, but it's not correct. So the first question is policy or ordinance, and if we want to leave it a policy, we're all done. If we want to make it an ordinance, then we have to go forward. What do we want to do?
I'm gonna ask Bryce, can you weigh in on that question I have?
Where they got that it was from a town meeting was Ann Huntington a number of years back, went through all of our policies and ordinances. And so unless it was a mistake in that binder, we can go back and review the annual report, but that's where they get that information.
But your binder has policies and ordinances in it.
The binder that Ann Huntington went
Well, I don't know who
through.
made the binder,
Yeah,
but
she-
you showed me a binder in your office before. That has all of our ordinances in it. Is that
Correct.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the history on it was a project done by Ann Huntington. That's in the
Oh.
vault that Chip had sent to
Oh, okay.
the code, a general code. Where that information that's probably where it came. from.
Okay, so she may have said it's an ordinance and was adopted by a town meeting.
Correct, so we can just double check on
Yeah.
that. Be certain.
But if it was an ordinance adopted at town meeting, there's no reason to have 5 select board signatures on the document.
I do
So,
agree with
right.
so I think it was a policy.
Right.
So what do we think, policy or ordinance?
I think it's important enough and it should be available to towns, folk who are trying to do some work
Yeah.
as an ordinance. That's my opinion.
Okay. So the current title is just culverts. I think I would like to talk about it. It really maybe should encompass a little more if it's gonna be an ordinance. We might want to think about calling it driveways or planned entrances onto town roads, culvert installation and maintenance.
Does policy not hold the legal weight of enforcement as
No, I
compared to an?
I don't believe it
I
does.
don't think so.
I don't know that you can now. I haven't spent any money on lawyers to find this out, but I don't believe that you can have a fine unless you have an ordinance. I don't think you can have that with policy. Now, I believe Chip is of the opinion that he can just use the state's driveway standards and use that in town. I'm not so sure about that. I believe that may speak to driveways onto state roads. But again, that would be something you'd have to ask somebody for an opinion on.
Well, and one of the ordinances that you provided specifically calls out town roads versus state roads
Yeah.
because it says the state is the one who has the regulation over the state roads.
Yes,
One thing that's gonna come up in here is gonna be, we always think about that somebody individual has a house, and they have a driveway, and they have a culvert at the end of the driveway. But some individuals will have a development with 5 or 10 houses. And the question will be, will there be a possibility of requiring some of those or all of them to use one exit on the road or not?
well, culverts are addressed in your subdivision regulations also. And I think if you had the situation you're talking about, they would have to probably get a subdivision approved by the planning board. And that would be
The
part of
planning
their,
board would
that'd
have
be
the
part of,
authority.
yeah, that would be part of their approval process. I mean, they get the engineers to decide
Mhm.
how many curb cuts they need into their subdivision and those
The
things.
engineers are gonna decide they need one per house.
Oh, I-
And it's gonna,
well,
and the
Well, it's,
board community is gonna have to decide something else, if something else is appropriate.
But
Well,
this is really specific to just
It's a house, yeah,
planned
it's a
entrance.
house, a
A
planned
planned
entrance.
entrance, it doesn't even reference a house.
yeah, that's correct. It doesn't have to be a
I mean, you
house.
can have a
You have a
planned
driveway,
entrance
yeah.
to all aspects of your property.
To field.
Okay,
That's correct.
So you.
I would call it a curb cut, even though we don't have that many curbs,
Exactly.
but
Which are highly regulated in a city.
yes. Okay, so the code one didn't bring this up, but I think that our current ordinance or current policy isn't very specific about requiring things, right? Right now it says a planned entrance onto a Wayne road. Nope, a planned entrance onto Raintown Road will be requested from the town road commissioner. I think we should say, no person shall construct or place any driveway or other planned entrance onto a Wayne road without first obtaining a permit from the town road commissioner. Permit application forms are available from the Wayne office.
That's this language.
That's this language right
Yeah,
here.
yep.
And it's clear, General code didn't say anything about that, but this says there's a prohibition. You can't place a driveway unless you have a permit. Uh,
I'm
Or-
supportive of that.
uh, Now, if we want to do that, we'll send them a request that they revise section 11-1. If we don't want to do that, we don't have no actions necessary. And on these actions, I'll do that and bring it back at the next meeting for you all to look at before we send it to Chip. So do we want to change it to make it more specific? Instead of just saying planned entrances, saying permits required for planned entrances?
I did have a question about that.
Yes.
Is the town road commissioner, I was just wondering, is it the CEO who would make that potential decision, or is the
Well,
town
our
road commissioner?
policy was talked about the town road commissioner,
Okay,
but Chip, I think, actually does it. I know he didn't always do it, because when I put my driveway in, I talked to Aaron, who was the road commissioner. So
Road commissioner.
I think it's the road commissioner
For
Okay.
that.
should be doing that.
it was just a question in my
Yeah,
brain.
yeah.
Or,
I think it should be the road
I
commissioner.
agree with that.
okay.
Okay, this thing only talks about culverts. Do we want to, in this, ordinance, put anything about site distances or signage or anything like that? Now, I can tell you, Chip's form that he uses has the criteria, and it's not in an ordinance or anything, but I think he maybe, borrowed the form from Reedfield, and it has site distances in his criteria for driveway, and he says that's what he enforces, so I don't know if you
On a
wanna.
town road?
Yeah.
If it's a buildable lot and it's zoned as a buildable lot,
So let's not worry about site distances.
I don't think, that seems a little, I
Okay.
mean, if it would conflict with our zoning ordinance.
Okay,
You know, or to, I mean, I'm just thinking about this right at the surface. But
Okay.
if you start putting site distances on a buildable lot, you're,
well, if you're cutting onto a state road, you'd have the site distance.
yeah, but state road's totally different. It's totally different jurisdiction, enforcement.
But in that case, it needs to go off of the application form. It needs to be taken
Yeah,
off.
take
the
it off if we're not
application.
gonna
It needs
enforce it,
to
okay.
Either
So
be in
then we
both
don't-
places or in neither places.
I mean,
Then we-
I haven't,
And,
I haven't vetted this
And is
thought
it a-
completely, but just loosely.
well, is it there's a problem if I'm cutting out on a driveway onto, 133 where the speed limit's 55 miles an hour. I don't know if cutting driveways into town roads, if sight distance is such a big deal or not. I have no idea.
I don't even think,
But I'm happy
I
to-
don't even think we can enforce our own speed
Okay.
limits on town
Okay.
roads.
All right. So
I
No,
think there's some.
we're not gonna put in any additional criteria for granting a permit, other than looking for, need a culvert.
Culverts would really, we care about the culvert,
Okay, yeah.
water.
We care about the
'Cause that-
culverts because we don't wash the road.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
costing the town money,
Yeah.
we care about the culvert.
Now, the culverts are addressed in a number of other town ordinances, and this is another thing that Code 1 didn't address. But since culverts are also addressed in a bunch of other town ordinances, I think we should add a provision, a conflicts provision. And I suggested one in there. It says, if any standard requirement stated in this policy conflicts with one in any other town ordinance, regulation, or policy regarding the installation and maintenance of culverts, the stricter or the more stringent standard or requirements shall be applied to the permit application. That seem okay?
Makes sense.
Okay. General Code's first question, question 11-1, do we want a penalty provision? They said the current policy doesn't provide for a penalty for non-compliance. If we don't want to have a penalty provision, we can just say, leave it like it is. If we do want a penalty provision, we have to give them one to put in there. I borrowed a couple penalty provisions, one from Monmouth's land use ordinance and one from a Bradley, road ordinance. And they are on this, page 19 and 20 of our materials. And, you might want to consider if we want to, the Monmouth one just says if they construct and I kind of like the penalty provision, because one of the things it says, if you construct a driveway and don't put in a culvert, you're gonna be responsible to the town for all the damages. So if your road does get washed out because you didn't comply with this ordinance, it would be your responsibility for that. The Monmouth one says any person constructing or causing a driveway to be put in, I'm paraphrasing now, not in compliance with the provision is liable to the town for all fees and expenses of repairs, and shall be subject to penalty provision as prescribed in the code that deals with enforcement of land use ordinances. Do you want to put something like that in there?
Do we have any precedent anywhere? Penalties and,
What do you mean by precedent? There's, this came out of Monmouth ordinance, the
Yeah,
one,
but it-
bullet came out of a
so
Bradley
in,
ordinance.
in our Wayne. code
No, we hit
ordinance,
your Wayne,
does that,
no, your Wayne, oh, no.
I understand there isn't in this one, but
Yeah.
in any others?
You mean,
Oh,
are
I'd
there
have to go look at
penalties
the
in any
zoning,
other
if the zoning
ordinances for
ordinance,
not following?
is there a penalty in the zoning ordinance? I haven't looked at it, but I would assume it's this Title 30A, MRS section 4452, because that's a general thing that talks about enforcement of land use ordinances. And I can't believe we have a land use ordinance that doesn't have an enforcement provision. But we might.
We enforce, or CHIP enforces
Yeah.
penalties.
Yeah, and that's, yes,
On entrances.
No.
No, on.
Oh,
just-
on violations of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
land
sure,
use ordinance.
sure.
And this is a penalty on violation of this ordinance.
What I like
And if we
about,
don't want to put it in there, that's easier.
what I like about this is that it just compensates the town for the cost and expense of doing the job. It's not an arbitrary number like $100 or $200
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, well,
The Bradley ordinance is very long and very wordy, but covers the town financially
It does cover
in a
more.
lot of places.
It does. The Bradley one is more comprehensive, but I didn't want to read it all tonight.
Yeah, but
But if you've already read it,
Read.
then you know.
Yes.
It is more comprehensive and it provides for better coverage for the town.
Right, and if something happens, that we
Yeah.
don't want the town to be financially responsible for legal fees
Uh-huh.
and the resulting damages and the repair of
doesn't,
somebody's
doesn't,
culvert.
doesn't the Monmouth one do the same thing?
So I don't know what the enforcement section says, so I don't know
Okay, yeah.
if just referring to the enforcement of land use.
The enforcement section that allows for fines. The 30 MRSA, section 4452, it allows for a fine of so much a day for non-compliance with the land use ordinance.
Okay. And could that,
Either one would be fine, I think.
I think the simpler one, it might be better, there might be, there might be some gotchas in here, you know, the culvert installation was not designed in accordance with the section, well, we don't have any design criteria in here,
Well-
so. I think there might be some, risk if we put things in here that. We can't.
but we were talking about having standards being separate.
Yeah.
And not, in order to not have to go back and get things approved constantly as our knowledge about the best way to put in a culvert, for example, changes, we could change our standards. And that is where we refer to, but we want to make sure people apply those standards and if they, so those would be available.
I'd be interested to know since 1998 if how many culvert concerns issues we've had, but that's another point.
Well, and if
It sounds like-
if we're chasing something that's not an issue.
That's kind of that's my
If we're
question.
chasing
quite
something that's
frankly.
not an issue, it's easy to say, let's leave it a policy. And
That's what I'm-
tell Chip,
that's-
just let it, take it out.
That's what I'm
Example is
asking.
That, it was down.
But
at,
I don't know. There is issues. That's my question.
There is, yeah. There are
Okay.
places where there are unsuitable situations where they're hanging culverts,
Got it.
what was the name of that road that Ann was exercised about, where right down along the base back below their house, there were a whole series of terrible culverts and there was a
On the
regrading.
town road.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's an interesting question, if they were, if they were installed by the landowner and maintained by the town.
No, if there's a culvert,
I think
okay.
the town maintains it once the landowner
That's what I'm
installs it.
saying.
Puts it in,
So
but it has to be
that's a
put in
town
correctly.
issue. That's
Then
not
it's a
an
town
installation
issue.
issue.
but it is for any, the thing is, we're gonna be building things in places where they're not. Quite as so fit suited to construction anymore. They're gonna,
If
these
the,
steeper slopes are gonna be a lot of places.
No, I understand. So there is concern.
They're
and,
concerned.
the- and,
That's my
and
question.
road maintenance is so expensive that if someone were to put in a culvert that was not up to the standards and it failed, and there wasn't an ordinance and a penalty, the town could be responsible for fixing that culvert and any issues that might occur around the bad culvert. Roads are just so expensive and so important that I think it's necessary to let people know we're serious about curb cuts, as Henry said.
Sure. And I just want to point out to Lloyd, in your currently as existing, after approval of the installation, the town thereafter becomes responsible for the care and the maintenance of the culvert. This includes any necessary replacement.
Mhm.
So,
And like on the, if you look at the one up above that, we were talking about standards on 11.3, we would modify that or tweak it a little bit to say the landowner is responsible for purchase, installing and proper backfilling of said culvert in accordance with, current standards,
Standards.
which are available at the town office.
yeah.
And so I think we may be all done. We're gonna have a conflicts provision. We're not going to talk about site distances.
I mean, that's just my
No,
opinion, but
I think that's
I'm not.
fine. We are, going to have a penalty clause more similar to Monmouth or more similar to Bradley?
I prefer Monmouth's.
Okay, Monmouth is fine. Monmouth will work. It'll work.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to, indicate that the culvert will be, installed in accordance with installation instructions that are made available by the town. And if the culvert is necessary, the road commissioner will issue the permit stating the culvert type, diameter and length. And I think that's it.
Did
And-
you, in your list there, did you talk about it not just being culvert, but about it being driveway? You had a suggestion about changing the titling.
I was gonna change the title if we were going to increase we're gonna talk about factors other than culverts, but since we're just dealing with culverts, I'd leave it culverts. I might leave it, you might wanna change it. I'd say culverts on entrances into town roads, something to that effect. So what we're talking about is culverts on driveways or other entrances on the town roads.
And so is it remaining a policy versus,
No, I
An
think,
ordinance.
we're gonna make it an ordinance. If it remained a policy, we'd be all done. We would have not, yeah.
Right.
well, we could change, I mean, we
Okay,
could
yeah, we
change
can
the
change the wording.
policy.
Yes, ma'am, we could.
All right.
Okay.
I just wanted
Okay.
clarity there.
Okay, so. And
So
when you,
if it stays culvert though, does this planned entrance still work?
yes, because that's what you have to have a culvert. That's where the culvert goes. If you're gonna have a planned entrance onto a Wayne Road, the road commissioner has to determine whether a culvert's necessary.
And
So I
then
think the
separately,
plan-
there's the culvert installation.
Yeah,
Ordinance.
well, if the culvert is necessary, then he's gonna tell you the size and diameter and length.
Yeah.
And it's going to have to be installed per the installation instructions that are available at the town office.
Mhm.
That would be part of the permit. And we should take the permit that
Check.
Chip is using, and if we don't want to enforce any site distance type things, maybe remove those from the permit, but you're gonna, that's going to be an interesting discussion for whoever breaches the topic with Chip. Okay,
But if it's not in our policies. And
Yeah.
if I go to do that and
Yeah.
there's on the application, a bunch of requirements that are nowhere in our policies, I'm not gonna be happy camping.
Yes, yes. Well, you might complain about it, or you might just comply with it and say, okay.
True.
Okay, so, before our next meeting, I'll send out a complete questions answered and other comments that we are gonna send to Chip, and we can say yes or no and make our motion now. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next, got another one. Amusements, chapter 4. Okay, this is an ordinance, and this is an ordinance that regulates music, dancing, and entertainment in facilities that have licenses for on-premises consumption of alcohol.
It sounds like the Old West.
Prior to prior to 2017, there was a statute that required any town that had a facility that was licensed for on-premises consumption had to have one of these ordinances. After 2017, it's no longer required. Most of the ones I saw were old, pre-2017. Interestingly, Wayne did not have an ordinance pre-2017. We passed one in June of 2022, and then we tweaked it with a town meeting in 2023. And so the first question is, do we want one? I assume we do, since it was such a recent town action. Okay, the next question is general codes question. They want to know if our definition of entertainment, if we want to keep it. The definition of entertainment that we put in our ordinance came from the 2017 statute, from a section that was repealed. But I can tell you, it's an okay definition. The ordinance regulating entertainment has to define entertainment, so I would oppose deleting the definition. And the one that was in the statute before was as good as any. So unless we want to try to come up with a new definition, my answer would be keep the one that's there.
I think, well, this is a recent ordinance, why would we change that? Or delete it in any way, shape, or form?
I wouldn't, I mean.
I guess I don't know where code people are coming from on that question.
They're coming from the fact that that the definition was an exact verbatim quote from a section of this code that has since been deleted. That's where they're coming from, but it doesn't mean that it's not a good definition. That's kind of one of the things they do, is that if codes have been changed, they notify you of that. Okay, their next question is, it's kind of a nitpicky, but it's correct. It's a grammatical deal. They wanted to change the select board or their designee to the select board or its designee. Its is correct. I think it's nitpicky. I think they're fine. I would say let's make the change.
Yeah, it's correct.
Yeah, and I would say who cares also.
So
See,
would we,
Makes me feel better.
I would say, if we're not making any other changes to this,
yes,
we wouldn't want to have a warrant or article at town meeting just to change their.
no,
So
and no,
it's-
no, and
No, but
actually,
there's
no, we
more.
wouldn't want to have town meeting just change it, and
I would agree.
And if we don't, and we also, since this is such a new ordinance, this might be one that we want to say, let's not put it as a separate article on the town meeting. Let's go, let it go with the code. So basically, whatever we told to put in, it would get enacted in 2026, whatever we change.
I do have a question about the public hearings. To me, the crux of this whole thing is the timing on the public hearing and application and getting back to the applicant. I think that the it's is not a big deal.
No, the it's is not a big
But the
deal.
timing, I think, is
Yeah.
really important if
Yeah.
we're gonna get this right and be able to follow it.
Yeah, but that timing is, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I just don't wanna throw this
Okay,
away
no,
yet.
I'm not done, we're not done. The next
Okay.
question is the question 4.3, the permit application form. uh, I suggest they want to know what we want to do about the form. I would just, I made some tweaks in there. I said the application for all special amusement permits shall be made in writing to the select board and fully provide information requested on the application form available from the town office. They have such as may be amended from time to time at the reasonable discretion of the select board, see attached application form. And their comment was, do you want to attach one? There was none attached. Do you want to attach one? Well, I don't want to attach a form, but we can leave the, we should put in there that the form's available at the town office.
Mhm.
I would take out the discretion to change from time to time.
Yeah.
I just say, fill out an application form that you get from the town office.
I think your revision is
Okay,
fine. It's
then
unnecessary.
Then they want to know if we still want to have public hearings. Public hearings used to be required by the statute. That public hearing requirement is gone from the statute. So you don't have to have a public hearing on an application, on one of these special entertainment applications. But our ordinance requires a public hearing. And I suspect whatever the circumstances were in 2022 and 2023 for enacting this, that the public wanted to be heard on these applications. So we can keep public hearing. I say probably should.
Keep the ordinance.
Then the only thing we need to bear in mind, and this is part of the statute, is the timetable is like really gruesome. If we keep the hearing requirement, when we receive an application, we have to schedule public size and conduct a public hearing, vote on the application, and provide a written decision to the applicant, all within 15 days of the application being filed. And we just need to keep that in mind and try to do it. I suspect in the practical world, what's gonna happen is the 16th day is gonna come around and we're not gonna be finished with this. But we do it as soon as we can, trying to.
So
trying
the
to
hearing
do
has
15
to be
days.
held within 15,
Yes,
all
sir.
within 15?
All of that stuff
All of
within
that.
15 days.
Well, is that realistic? Could we change it to 30?
You can't because the 15 days is in the statute.
The statute was repealed.
No, that parts of it were
Oh,
repealed.
parts were repealed.
Yeah, parts of it were repealed.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we can do here is take the public hearing portion out.
Out. And so I think we ought to leave it in and just know that we have a lot to do. Because taking it out is going to, it would have to pass town meeting, and I don't know that would happen.
Well, I think if that's what people wanted,
Yeah.
that's what.
I think for
It should happen.
transparency, why wouldn't, we would want to keep the public hearing?
Yeah.
And then figure out how we meet the time
Okay.
requirements. What's the noticing on public hearing? How long? did the notice-
7 days.
7 days?
So is 15 days calendar days or business days?
I
Do you
think it's,
know?
I think it's calendar days, but it just, the statute just says 15 days. There's gonna be another one there's gonna be another law that I haven't looked at, that is a law on statutory construction, and it's gonna say what a day means. And I don't know, I haven't looked that up for this, but I'm guessing a day is a calendar day.
Okay.
But
Excuse me, Ken, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, just say, I believe that you can designate this authority to town manager. Which you'd be able to speed up the process a lot. I think. And I think work within 15 days. It would be really difficult if it was strictly the select board to do all that. I also think the public is gonna have, because recent,
no.
and it was, I'm not passionate about it.
Sure thing.
Yes.
So it stands.
Yep.
Right?
Their next question is the criteria for denying a permit. They ask if we want to keep the standard, because the standard, which says, we shall grant a permit except when issuance will be detrimental to the public or would violate municipal legislation. they say, well, that standard was in the pre-2017 statute, and that section of the statute was repealed. Do we want to keep this standard or revise it? Well, if we're gonna have this, ordinance, we need to have some criteria stated, I think, for not granting a permit. And that looks to me as good as any. So I would suggest we just tell them to leave it like it is. And the final question they asked, number 6. They said that they didn't think our ordinance described the permitted activities with particularity required by the statute. I've looked at it and read as a whole, I think it is sufficiently described. I think it sufficiently describes what is permitted and what is not. And so I would tend to tell them, just leave it like it is. It is the, it goes to describing the music, dancing, or entertainment permitted under each class. And our classes are indoors and outdoors. Let me look at the things here. Our classes are Class A, conducted indoors without amplification, or conducted indoors with amplification. Class B, conducted outdoors without amplification, constructed outdoors with amplification. I think the stuff that's regulated, the music, dancing, there's a broad definition of entertainment. I think it's written clear enough the way it is.
I'm willing to go with.
So in summary, this really doesn't need to be brought on the warrant. There's no
There's no
significant changes.
I don't believe so. And whatever, and when the code is finally done, that's gonna go on a warrant article. And that in essence is revising all of the stuff that's in the code. That's basically saying this pile of ordinances are thrown out and now we have this code. So that won't be happening this year because it won't be ready. But at some point in time, this, however it is, incorporated into the code will be passed on by the town. Because they're gonna have to adopt the code.
But in that process, they wouldn't be implementing these changes without.
The changes would be the new code reads like it was. So yes, instead of you're gonna have one warrant article with the code and it's gonna have 8 ordinances on it. That will be different.
It will be
Possibly, it could be different.
But what we're trying to do now is take the ordinance by ordinance and
Take the
change
ordinance
those.
Yeah,
So that when we do put the whole code,
together,
we've already approved all the changes that are in there
yeah,
to the best of our ability in the time frame we have.
yes. But it's still, that replaces what we
Yes.
did.
But I think I'm understanding correctly, what's presented to us in one complete collection.
It's a compilation of a pile of papers.
It's not
that we
gonna,
now
it's
have.
not gonna have automatically put it's instead of they or them.
No,
correct?
what we tell them whether we want its or theirs,
That's what I'm asking,
and they're gonna put, and I say we should put its.
but because okay,
And you say, I don't want it to go to a town meeting because of it. Well, it don't, it just won't say it's until the new code is.
but it's not gonna. Okay, I understand.
Interesting point.
It's not gonna make any of these other questions, it's not gonna change anything outside of what we've,
When we get the new product,
yeah.
and I'll go through my notes here and put
What
it
will the
together.
special amusement
Look at the new
ordinance look
product
like?
and the pre-existing one, and if the changes are significant, we ought to put it on a warrant. If the changes are not significant, then don't, just let the changes go with the code, and that's when it'll be approved, when the code's approved.
Oh, yeah.
Still not.
So the only change on this one was its.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna put it onto a warrant. The code will go, and when the code,
And we
all of
have,
the chapters come in, it'll be
Yes.
redlined, and the only change we'll see on the,
yeah, I don't know if they're gonna redline, I don't know what they're gonna give us. You're asking me a question about what what
I'm
the,
assuming it would be redlined. Because how are we going to know what we're approving in the ordinances?
well, that's the review process we're doing now is supposed to be doing. I mean, don't ask, don't put me in the spot of
No.
of defending this program.
No, I'm not. I'm
Just
just,
thinking process.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
understand this,
Yeah.
the way it's being described.
Because ultimately, changes to the ordinances have got to go to
Yeah.
a town meeting.
Well, all
So
those
we'll have to
questions,
describe what,
yes,
or somebody will have
Yeah.
to describe what changes are being enacted by putting it on the warrant.
Or
And if
maybe a
Well-
separate memo.
I don't know, do we always do red line? If we do an amended on the town warrant, first off, the warrant usually just says you can go see copy someplace else. I mean, the warrant says, will the town adopt this new zoning, the amended zoning ordinance? And then it says, you can go to the town office and look at it if you want. Isn't that correct? The one that's in the town office, is it redlined? Or is it just a new clean copy? You know?
So it'll just be a clean copy.
So
I'm not so sure they get redlined. tell you the truth.
pragmatically, would there be a public hearing before the town meeting so that you don't have like?
I don't think you need a
Huge.
public hearing, actually, if you have and we'd have to look that up, but if it's not,
Well, technically, you don't need one,
Yeah,
but I think we
you don't
could
need-
have.
you don't
we
need
can
one
have-
unless you're doing it for advice. You need to have a public hearing if it's a referendum.
Yeah.
Because there's no discussion at the meeting like we
Right.
had here tonight.
Right.
But if it's just if it comes out on the floor, most ordinances, you don't have to have a public hearing.
So-
You do on a zoning.
I would say whatever, sorry,
No, you go.
go, no.
Okay, if I can encapsulate what I understand. There are several codes that that they're looking at now. Some of them are at the planning committee. Some of them are with us. We're trying to look at the ones now to see if they need revision before 25 town meeting. And at that time, those ordinances will go into town meetings as a warrant to approve or not approve.
Yes.
At the end, the code folks are gonna put all of those together. The ones that have been approved are done, and they're gonna say, and then we go to the 26th town meeting and say, this is a new book with all the ordinances that you approved. Oh, by the way, there's this one we haven't approved with a change. Do you approve it or not? Is that the process that we're going through?
Yes, but what's important is, and let's talk about, the, campground ordinance, because that's an easier one to understand. Okay, if we got campground people here, okay. There's a bunch of changes that are proposed to be made to our existing campground ordinance,
Right.
okay? Right now, they have published a draft code that's our existing campground ordinance. It doesn't have any of those changes in it. And they've asked a whole bunch of questions. They might have asked 20 questions on that code. Okay, and they're asking to answer these questions so they can make changes to the code.
Right,
But if they do that, and then it's done and published, it's not gonna be what you want. If what you want is what we have been working on.
because we're,
So what I'm suggesting is perhaps we need to figure out how we want to change that now and tell them while they're doing this draft. So when they do the draft, they can incorporate those changes now. And then what they come up with will look like what we want. Now, either way, there's a little bit of a risk in this because we would take, if we took this ordinance, the new campground ordinance, and we said, okay, here's how we want to change it, and we give it to general code, that should be given to them by April 1st. Before we go to our next town meeting, and they're gonna take our new ordinance and put it in the code. And then when we go to town meeting, if it fails, the code's not gonna match our ordinance, so we're gonna have to go back to them and make a change. But if we don't do that, for sure, the code's not gonna match, and we're gonna have to make a change. That's
Right.
just the way that's just kind of the way this thing works, and that's sort of,
Plus, that one's very complicated in the way it's gonna be broken up.
yes. Okay, so I'll redo these, send final products for us to take a look at, and we can just say yes or no. We have two more that are on our plate. One is a parks, and public lands,
Mm.
all right?
No trespassing.
I went and talked with Ken about the Conservation Commission. He asked me to visit about that. And I think what we need, I sent a memo out about that just to highlight this and why we should be looking at it, okay? I believe perhaps this ordinance that we work on should just be parks. Because mainly everything in there addresses parks, and we may need to change some things about the parks, like do we want to have regulations about picking up trash and picking up after your dogs, and do we want to let non-residents come there, which we have to. If you make this ordinance, and who's gonna be responsible for that? I would suggest the town manager. And those are parks like the park around the Mill Pond, the park in North Wing. If we add public lands, my understanding from my brief conversation is that brings in the issue of who's gonna set the rules for these public lands and who's gonna administer them, and this is within the auspices of the Conservation Commission. And so if we're gonna have an ordinance that deals with public lands and parks, I think that that's gonna be a little more of a pull, and is going to require more input from the Conservation Commission. Have I
Plus,
got
that's a-
that kind of right, Ken? Okay.
Plus,
So-
it's a very unsettled,
So-
that particular thing is a very unsettled issue right now.
We have one issue in there that's very unsettled, and how we address it in this ordinance could have an implication on our position there, so I would like to ignore it. And
So,
so let's just make it parks only.
so what you're saying is we're gonna review parks next time?
Yeah, we're gonna review parks next time, and we're gonna review streets next time, and then we'll be done.
Streets,
Yeah,
parking?
the criteria for dedicating streets to the town.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
streets and roads.
Roads, yep, sure thing.
Thank you for all that.
Okay,
And we'll do those two, and then we'll be done
Yay.
with our four.
okay,
Okay,
that's
And-
great.
and-
Thanks, Henry.
sorry to be so boring on that.
No, it's good. I'm interested. At some point, I would suggest that maybe we reach out to the general contractor or the general codes to
Well,
help answer some of these questions from the board.
yes, and also, at some time, we need to take other ordinances and kind of do maybe some memos and bullet points. For example, the June is coming. To put something on a warrant in June, when does it have to be ready for an ordinance? Like in May?
Correct.
Okay, you got a treasurer's ordinance.
Yes,
That's garbage.
yes.
We got a town manager ordinance. That's not right. So those are
No,
two.
no.
Oh, we
No,
fixed
no.
that last
You
year.
did?
Town manager.
Yes,
So did we
ordinance
pass this
was
ordinance?
yes, we're under the state statute now. That was such
Okay,
a
but
big
did
deal.
we adopted the
Yes.
statute, but did we do an ordinance?
We don't
We don't
need
Don't
one.
have,
We don't need one.
okay. So
Because we're under
the,
the state
so the
statute.
ordinance the old ordinance, when we adopted that statute, did it
Repeal.
repeal that
We
ordinance?
repealed it,
Okay,
Yeah, it's
right?
okay.
And if, doesn't it contradict our treasurer?
No,
treasurer's ordinance?
Yeah,
As
it,
well? So there is still work to be done.
there's still work to be done.
Doesn't
Under
really-
the treasurer's
It doesn't really.
ordinance.
On the treasurer.
Because the town manager ordinance under the state statute reads unless otherwise,
Yes,
unless otherwise, what's the word?
indicated.
Indicated by a town ordinance.
But for example,
So
if you
it doesn't really conflict in terms of the fact that the select board supervises the treasurer. And then the state statute says town manager supervises the treasurer. We have an ordinance that supersedes that.
but
Is that, I think.
But we
that's-
still need to work on the
But-
treasurer.
Trent,
Yeah,
you
I'm
need-
just, regard, that one question. I wanted
Okay,
to
Trent,
get
if
straight.
if the statute says the town manager supervises the fire chief,
But our ordinance
Unless-
says otherwise.
what, or is it a town manager ordinance or is it a
No.
fire ordinance? Fire chief?
Fire
ordinance?
chief ordinance. Correct.
Okay,
So we have a treasurer ordinance, we have a fire chief ordinance.
okay.
And then we have the statute that,
those are the two.
that defines the town,
Okay,
the
Yeah,
town
so
government as
that's-
well as including the town manager's position.
That's in pretty good shape, but the treasurer.
the
ordinance
treasurer
needs
ordinance,
attention.
well, I mean,
I'm not, yeah.
it still says he's elected.
It's a
Yeah,
little
but then
weak.
that was also ratified and changed in, I think. 08.
Okay,
But
that's-
to your point.
Yeah.
I understand your
Yeah.
point. Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct.
Yeah.
Yes, but that was changed, I think.
That
But
was the
yes,
point of another memo or another
yeah,
bunch of
to your-
documents you sent out, right? Well, no, that's not true. No,
No.
no, right, got it.
No, that's good. Your point is
Okay.
taken. The treasurer ordinance needs attention. Yes. Okay,
Okay.
that's great.
I'm done.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, new business. All right, supplements and abatements.
Do we have documentation on these abatements? Cause I did not find it.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
The first one was an adjustment on they were both adjustments on assessed value. The first one was on land, on a piece of property, and then the other one, the second one was on a building.
We're gonna have a form to sign, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Okay.
The amounts,
How do we know what we're
do
approving?
you have, is there enough to pass around or?
Yeah, you guys.
What do we want?
Yeah.
It doesn't really, it's just showing the amount, basically what is.
And the person and the property and the amount?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it's an abatement due to the valuation.
The building doesn't exist.
That's
No.
good reason.
Who knows?
Trying to
Doesn't matter.
pass the assessor
Yeah,
out of my realm.
doesn't matter.
yeah, okay, we do those separately?
Yes, do we?
You can do it either or if you want to group them together or.
I'll move we approve abatement 2425-25 in the amount of $128 $95, as well as 2425-26 in the amount of $62.70.
Second,
Discussion? All in favor? Okay. Town manager report, Shannon.
Oh, good evening.
Yeah.
Today was very productive. We covered a lot. We went over emails, different platforms, different software that we have. We went over budgetary items, including, as you had heard earlier, the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry for the LAD project. We did receive a check today for the $71,540. So that was a good news to sit there and see that. And then other than that, it was like I said, a very productive day, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve this wonderful community. I think it's a great one. So I look forward to it and working with all of you.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Wait, would you explain to us how many days a week we've got you wedded and everything? Found out,
Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 5.
all right, good. Mm.
Great. Board member reports.
I'll just say, I have looked a little bit into the matter of triangulating the town boundaries. And I'd like for you to discuss with the town clerk the question I asked her. I sent her an email, she could find out when it was last done. The impression I get is that they did do it some time ago. And they found it was fine, they never put it in the minutes or anything, which is kind of unfortunate because then we don't have any. But it would be good to, she'd call me if she has any questions. That's it for me.
Thank you. Public comments. Yes,
Oh, from the committee that was working on the campground ordinance, last Thursday, we did present at a public hearing the revised and the proposed amendments. And the planning board voted to move that forward to the select board. I'm wondering, has that been moved to the select board yet?
I'm not aware of that at this point. I haven't been. I don't know. Has anybody else been brought up on that?
Chip called me today and he and I, and you were in there for the sort of the end of it. He and I spoke with Jim Katsifikis.
Mhm.
Apparently, there's at the next planning board meeting, so scheduled, they're going to do the final tweaking on this and send it to us with recommendations. Now, Jim was saying even when that happens, things he thinks have to be done. He believes that there are items in the work product of the committee, which I think was pretty good, for there were items in there for the campground ordinance that were also covered in the old campground ordinance, which predated the zoning ordinance, that are proper for a zoning ordinance and not for campground ordinance. And then he believes that there are other things that should go in a campground ordinance, but not a zoning ordinance. And he's speaking to doing all this sometime in the future. He sent us, I asked him about a correspondence that I saw where he sent one a while back that said for 15 to 20 hours worth of work, he could do this. And I said, okay, are you saying that for 15 or 20 hours worth of work, you can give us documents that you say are good and work? And he said, yes. So, but he can't do that until he gets this material from the planning board. And also, he is only working 3 days a week and he is retiring. So I asked him about a timetable for getting this done. And we really are a lot better off doing it sooner than later. And I suggested to Chip, maybe the planning board needs to have a special meeting sometime prior to the third week in February to address this. And maybe it needs to be a joint meeting of us and the planning board, the select board and planning board in a joint meeting to get this final product. And then I'd say, hey, if Katsifikis says he can fix this up, our attorney's fees budget is not doing well, but it's gonna be more than less than $5,000, I would say. And if he can get it done and it's finished, I would think that would be something that we would want to do.
So he is going to provide us with that document parsed into the zoning portions and the ordinance portions.
He's gonna give us, and I think you were in for this part of the conversation, Shannon, maybe not, but he's gonna give us a campground ordinance and an amended zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Betsy?
It's a difference between the bulk of the ordinance goes into, he thinks it would be stronger if it goes into our zoning ordinance, but then there's parts of it that come under a policing policy. Right, so it's not a separate ordinance, it would be a policing policy for campgrounds. And we've already pulled out, we've already given, the part of our work was, we've pulled out the policing power pieces of the ordinance that could easily be pulled out. And then leave the rest of the ordinance that we've worked on, the amendments, as going forward with the part that we get rolled into the zoning ordinance, which general code said, once it's adopted, or once we put it to the town vote, they can roll it into the general code, the work that they're doing. I mean, that's what we got. That's the information. I'm kind of sitting here like, what kind of changes now is he envisioning making to this?
Well,
But-
well, Betsy, when you have the-
Wait, Henry,
Uh-huh.
the planning board approved to pass to the select board the work that we've done with a few very minor edits. And that's what we were told, that would get moved to the select board to go to the next process of the select board holding the public hearing. So to prepare for it to be voted on at the June annual town meeting. Not get ripped apart, and I'm now just like really concerned that what I'm hearing from you is that, is this gonna be all pulled apart, all the work that we've done, that just got approved to pass on to you? I'm really concerned, I'm not clear now on what Jim is now coming up and saying. And
So-
it really should not be a tedious task. We've already pulled apart the policing policy.
Our understanding was all he was gonna do was get the go-ahead from the planning board and put a summary page, a summary statement together to be able to put it all together and give it to you.
How does it get into the zoning ordinance?
It gets into what was explained to us was, maybe this is my interpretation, and I know other people were there, but what I expected was that, the planning board, like I say, is gonna move it on to you. It goes to a public hearing that the select board holds. And you then decide keeping it as its own, campground ordinance to have the town vote on it and then put it into, give it to general code to incorporate into the whole zoning ordinance, pulling out those policing peppers.
Almost a week has gone by and the planning board hasn't sent you anything yet?
It was last Thursday.
It was Thursday. Well, how long does it take for them to send you what they voted on to pass to the select board?
How about
This
this?
has been going on for-
We have nothing in front of us. The board doesn't have these documents in front of us. I'm gonna pause, I can't even engage in this conversation because I don't have the information in front of me. We're gonna follow up. I can find out what's coming from the planning board. We'll have it.
I'll check on that.
So I can't even have a discussion. I have nothing to even go on.
My concern is that if we want to do this in a timely fashion.
Sure.
And we want to have it ready for the June annual town meeting, we need to make sure that we get the clarification for the.
Yeah,
what the process is
absolutely.
gonna be, and make sure that backing it, that we do the public hearing in the timely, timely fashion.
Right, and that's right, because generally in a land, and that's where I need to talk to the planning board and we can get together because I was. Yes, understood. Yes. Yep, understood. So other public comments. Ken,
I just would like to know when the select board would have public input on the ordinance changes that you're anticipating based on your work with the general code. Prior to the vote. Just think it's valuable.
yeah, I would agree. I think we have got some, to answer, I can't give you a specific date or time right here tonight, but I can note the public interest. And then we can follow up on this process and get some more information from general code, get information on this process and then determine. What our schedule is and how we set agenda items. Yes, Eric.
I would just make the request that incorporating in that process. To the extent that you are making substantive changes to existing policies and ordinance in the process of transferring them to the code, that you do produce a red line for the public to view. In the past, in my recollection, anytime we have adopted amended ordinances at town meeting, we have had available red line copy.
Yeah.
I think that would be important for people to understand what is changing.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think. Yeah, to reiterate the point, I'd like to find out who the point person is for general code, so we can.
Yeah.
Maybe invite him to a meeting.
Yeah.
I think that would be useful. So maybe we can. Work on that.
Got it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think I've got. Points, so we've got.
Yep.
Planning board, general code question, and then. How that relates to schedule and process. Very good. Are there anything else tonight? Okay, the board, our last agenda item, well, second to last, we're entering an executive session.
I will move that we move into executive session regarding personnel matters. 1 MRSA, section 4056A. Second.
All in favor? Okay, great, thank you. All in favor? Sorry. There's no action to be taken, however, we are going to set a emergent, is it emergent?
Just say special.
Special,
Meeting.
special, right? Yeah, special, select board meeting for Tuesday.
28th.
Yeah, thank you. January 28th at 6 PM at the Lad Center. I think that's it. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Will we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Great. Thank you. Thank you all.
We weren't just waiting for you.